Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are hanging in there. How's the weather?
It's chilly but good. It's going to be a warm week, which is good. I think maybe the team will be practicing out in the rain one of those days. I'm sure he'll have them go out in the rain. You know what we haven't seen a lot of so far? We haven't seen a whole bunch of like pre-spring videos. Yeah. We haven't seen chasing for or whatever it would be. Like, is that? I mean, we can ask Rhule that, but is that all like done? Is that like they're just time to move on from all that?
We've been talking about this for like a month, Sam. So we'll start right here. And I was kind of talking with Ravi. It just seems like, and you're there, you're close, so you can get a sense of the vibe. It just seems like with the whole, and I apologize for our listeners because they've heard me say this before, with the whole, hey, I talked to our team about winning close games. Like it's not a curse. Like we just need to be better. Or with guys on social media, hey, just play football. Just worry about getting better. Hey, it's year 3. Like this is a big year. We need to get better on the field. He's kind of set the tone for it being just about football. And I wonder if it's trickled into the social media stuff too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, for sure.
Because I don't know what's going to happen in the spring and all of a sudden what they'll be doing with that. But I think he still wants to market because they do have such a, first of all, they have a fantastic production group. But
yes, they do.
And they have a good online presence. I don't know if he would be willing to scrap that. I just think maybe he's not interested in kind of the pushback and the slack that he caught from the chasing 3.
The pushback. No, a lot of people liked that though.
There's a lot of snark out there. I think the last third.
Sure.
Of the season.
Well, yeah. Well,
I guess we only release them when we win, or
yeah,
stuff like
there
that,
was that, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because I honestly don't know. He and I have never had that conversation, but I'm just saying, knowing his personality, I can't imagine. I'm sure he's probably pretty pissed about that. Like, it's why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always a little bit of a risk.
Yeah.
And when you're doing those things,
and maybe he's in the risk mitigating business now, right? He's like that with schedule. He's like that with schedules. He's
man after my own heart.
Risk mitigating. Yeah, I don't know. It is going to be fascinating because I'm going to be learning the same time you will. You can tell it's
a little. Yeah, it's you can tell there's a little bit more of a button down is not the right phrase because I mean Rhule's super transparent, but
you know what else I think it is?
Urgent. Yeah.
You know what else I think it is? I think this is the hardest in the offseason he's worked since he's been here with molding his own staff.
Right.
You've heard about the 6-hour staff meetings, the head coach coaching coordinators coaching assistant coaches. I think he's really dialed in on getting his staff ready for the rigor too. Maybe that's it.
It could be. I mean, that's entirely possible.
Because he hasn't been around with those guys a ton.
Well, yeah. I mean, some of them are new hires, so yes, for sure. Like some of them are guys that were doing other jobs or whatever.
Yeah, Sam, I do think it's interesting. This is probably the strangest, probably isn't the right word, but most unknown staff dynamic that he's ever had as a head coach. I mean, this is the first time it seems like he's really gone out of his circle for almost everybody on staff.
I would agree.
Right. I think he hired, an offensive head coach or whatever you want to call him in Holgerson. And so I think he hired somebody that's going to manage all of that and needs to. I think the one thing I would say is, there might have been a little bit of whatever in that first year on offense where Harburg's going over and talking to Rhule and he's talking to, so I think he hired an offensive coach to come in and do the things that need to be done on that side of the ball. And the key is the defense has to, if they're going to crank up their pace, and I'm not saying that I'm not guaranteeing they're going to do that, but if that's what they do and they decide that they're going to move faster, then you have to have a defense that makes plays, because your defense is going to be on the field a little bit more if you're moving up your tempo. And last year they deliberately dialed it down, and they moved pretty slowly, and they saved snaps on their defense, but their offense also suffered. So I'll be curious to see what the tempo is for the offense, how fast they want to move, because I think Raiola would probably really enjoy going quickly. And then how that affects the defense, and whether the defense has playmakers who can make plays.
Oh, I don't know if I could see that happening. That's interesting to hear it out loud. I don't know if I could see them playing with intentional pace unnecessarily, if that makes sense. Because I don't know. That's interesting, because you have a lot of new pieces. How fast do you think they could play or want to play? I can't see him intentionally doing that in this conference, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see, and maybe they won't do that.
Although the bowl game start was pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
They played with some pace.
They did. You can turn up and down tempo, obviously, in the course of the game, but I don't know. I just feel like you have to create some sort of advantage on offense. The defense has sort of an embedded advantage before every snap, because the defense can move around and do whatever they want. And the offense, the advantage the offense has is the defense doesn't know what they're going to do. But you have to do more than that. So when you huddle up and you do things like that, well, you can shift your personnel all the time, and you can have, more detailed plays, and the communication is better, and you can have, motions and shifts and trades and all those things. When you go to the system they're going to go to, if you're going to pare your playbook down, I would think that you're going to want to try to increase the amount of execution, and you may want to do that from a tempo standpoint. If you're able to kind of move a little bit more quickly, it's possible that they won't do any of that. I think that's why I said I'll be curious to see what they choose, how they choose to play, and whether they choose to, move briskly the way that Holgorsen wants to move, or if they choose, to do something differently. I mean, he has run tempo offenses in the past, and again, I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I'm intrigued to see kind of how he chooses to tackle that. Let's see. His last year at Houston, they ran 75 plays a game.
That would be about right for me. I think Nebraska wants low 70s.
Well, you want low 70s because you're winning all the time. Sure. Yes. I mean, yes. That's yes. But in theory, you would be able to control the game. Nebraska was.
When I throw out a number like that, Sam, I'm eliminating variables, right?
Okay.
Third down stops,
right,
or third down conversions. I'm saying the target number, I think that's a good number of offensive plays, all things being equal, is 75 for this. Is about that number.
It was 68 in 2024, so 68 plays.
A little too low. Not enough third down conversions.
And then in 2023, Rhule's first year, it was 60. It was 61.
Oof. Way.
Now, one of the reasons now it's too low. I agree with you. And their third down conversions weren't good enough. I'm saying they went slow. They're they embraced the molasses speed defense or offense in part to protect the defense. That's part of what you get out of it. Is if you slow down, your defense does not receive as many reps. In the game where Nebraska really hummed last year against Wisconsin, what did Nebraska's defense do? I mean, they gave up a lot of yards. And so I always felt like, Rhule's going to lead with, we're going to protect the culture and the confidence of the defense. Our offense is going to complement that unit, not the other way around. And so they moved accordingly. Now, maybe they'll do that with Holgorsen, but teams that run that many plays generally, have their share of 3 and outs. And that's where you're running into, okay, well, how fast are we going to move? Like Scott Frost's first team at Nebraska ran 72 plays a game. That was in 2018, and it moved pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But the defense couldn't handle it. We watched the games. The defense really struggled to handle the tempo with which, they tried blitzing. Remember, I mean, you were watching. They tried to be aggressive. It didn't work. They lost to Northwestern, and they couldn't cover people. And the year later, they went with 72 plays a game. So, like, Frost kind of had a vision. They just couldn't get the defense to make enough plays, and so he had to then turn it back down. Remember, he kind of turned it back down. Anyway, we're just going into the big pass. But that's part of what I wrote about today. And Holgorsen has a reputation for running a lot of plays. So I'm curious to see if he dials that all the way back because he's working for Rhule.
Sam, I've been wondering, as it seems like, whether it's the video stuff, and it just seems like they're not maybe going to give us as much insight this spring. Have you wondered at all about how much you think you're going to be able to learn this spring versus previous years?
We may learn less. I mean, Rhule is really honest. And so, like, sooner or later within a press conference, you get into his pitch count, and he'll tell you something that he probably didn't go into the press conference planning to say. And then Holgorsen he's just going to be him. So whatever he wants to say, he's going to say. So we're probably going to learn something from their comments. I don't know that we're going to see much. But, I think the dynamics are kind of out there. And Damon over the last several weeks has laid a lot of those dynamics out. You've got some dudes in this program who are younger. And can they make that jump and get to that level now? Like not a year from now, but now. And then make it really interesting in terms of the competition with those transfers. I mean, they brought in the transfers to play, but I'm sure they would absolutely love a situation where, Hardley Gilmore and Isaiah Hunter aren't just playing because they're the best guys. Like Keelan Smith and, other people are coming, and they're there and they're making plays. And it's like, oh man, now we have a dilemma on our hands. And in the secondary, the same deal. Like, you want the young guys that you recruited as high school players to really push Bly Hill and Jameer Khan. And you really want them, and Jameer Khan's hurt, but Khan and Marshall and Hill and, those guys, you want there to be a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You want Deshaun Singleton to be challenged. Like, I understand why they brought Deshaun Singleton back. When he's healthy, he's really good, but you want a situation where Deshaun Singleton's not playing as many snaps as he was last year because there's a guy that you just got to get on the field.
Yeah, you don't want you want Buford challenged.
Correct.
Yeah,
you do, yeah. And I think they've got a secondary coach who's going to embrace all that. And
they do.
Yeah, like and he has probably the most talented room, like. The most group of talented players. And so like, he's got to try to figure out who's going to get snaps and who isn't. And, there's the conversation for sure. You can put Buford and Hartzog on the field. Malcolm Hartzog plays really hard. And I respect the heck out of that guy. There's plays last year where there wasn't much more he could do because he is 5'9". And USC catches the ball over him. And what ideally you would love to have, Sierra Wright and Bly Hill, if he's healthy, or Sierra Wright and Andrew Marshall, if he's good to go. Not because they play harder than Hartzog, but like they're 6'1" and Hill's 6'4". Nobody's going to catch a ball over Bly Hill. Now they might catch one in front of him, and he's got to go up and make a tackle. Or Donovan Jones, who's not 5'9". So like, there's just all kinds of things that they're going to have to work through, and it's that balance. And Damon's laid all that out. Like, now it's a question of, are those young guys going to step up and really push? And if they do, it affords Matt Rhule the opportunity to embrace some of the young guys and put them out there, because it's a better 2-year look if they're able to play early than if we're just going to go with the transfers this year, and then we'll get to these guys in year 3 and year 4. Like, the offensive line is the biggest one to me. You'd really love to see third-year Sam Sledge, third-year Brock Knutson, second-year Grant Brick. You'd love to see those guys move into it. and not have this have to be, well, are Teddy and Turner going to come back? Like Teddy and Turner have been here a long time. There's guys in the program that probably don't remember much about like Turner playing because he's been so banged up. So like you want to be able to move forward if you can, but those kids have to prove it.
Sam, two things I think. One football, one general wrestling. From football, I'm trying to come up with. We're gonna do some categories tomorrow, just for fun. It's spring. I don't think we talk enough about players, and I get it, right? It's hard, new roster, whatever, but plenty of returning guys too. And I'm thinking of some categories, and like sleepers or keepers, or now or never, or I'm interested in whatever the categories are for, and kind of just talking about some guys in some positions. Is there an area of said categories or one of your own that you think you'd be relatively interested in if Nebraska is going to be pretty good?
What category?
Is there a category where you would call it like guys that need to perform, or if they come around then, or what? Because I don't have the categories yet. There's going to be about 4 or 5. Is there an area that interests you that we should categorize?
Yeah, I think that, line play is so important in the Big Ten, and the story about Nebraska's 2 lines of scrimmage at this point are the story of young players need to step up.
Okay.
And so, like, I think about where maybe on the offensive line they don't have to, but I think Nebraska would love it if they had options and it wasn't just, well, we hope this guy comes back healthy. So I think the offensive and defensive lines is a place, and then I kind of rank it by competitiveness, like competitiveness of unit, like competition and options, and the secondaries at the top. Candidly, at this moment, obviously quarterback, we already know who the starter is going to be, but I'd almost put like running back below that. Like they really need to figure out that position. And
that's interesting. They were productive down the stretch. Why do you pick running back? I'm curious.
Because their productivity, 2/3 of it is gone. Like they have to. I mean, Emmett Johnson has, kudos to him. He's stayed healthy. Well, he's played. He's tough.
Right.
But you're an injury away there from a question mark. And I mean, his backup is going to be either Quentin Ives, Lakai Nelson, Jamarian Parker. Connor Booth, maybe. He's banged up. I just don't know if I see that. One of those 3 names, right? Well, how many combined career carries do they have? Like 3. So, you have to have another back. It's not like Emmett can play 70% of the snaps, but I went back and did this. Like Amir Abdullah played some ridiculous percentage of snaps in 2013 or 2014, and he's still, Terrell Newby still had 70 carries or whatever. So like, you can't just get it with one guy alone. You got to play 2. So at quarterback, you literally can play 1. Like you don't have to. If you're in 12 close games, Dylan Raiola can take every snap. That is just not true at running back. And so now they got to figure out who that second guy is. And so it is competitive in a way, but it's just Emmett Johnson's such an unquestioned starter there. He and Raiola are kind of the 2 that you just don't question, right?
Yeah. I got some ideas. For tomorrow.
Sam,
like who are the most questionable? Like who are the unquestioned starters, and who are the ones where you just don't know yet? There's a kid.
The unquestioned starters. That's a good one. Unquestioned starters versus don't know.
Yeah. There's not many.
That's a good one. That's a good category.
Yeah. There's not many. There's like 2.
I'm writing that one down.
I want to be a little different, but that's a good one.
That's a good.
I don't know how many of those there are.
There aren't. I really do think Sierra Wright, he's in. Like his production last year was pretty good, and so like I think he's gonna start. I feel good. I feel confident there, and I feel confident with Dylan and Emmett Justin Evans, and Rocco Spindler. Those are probably the 5. That's name 6, 5. I don't know. Does anybody really know who's going to start in the front 7 on defense? Probably Vincent Shavers will, but we don't know. We don't know. We don't know. No.
Yeah.
Who's the middle linebacker transfer? I feel pretty good about that one.
Sure.
That's
but I'm
not
just
a lot though.
Like,
you're right.
You know how good they want to be on defense? They have 4 coordinators. 4 guys with coordinator experience.
And
Matt
that's
Rhule,
I 100% agree with that. He's a defensive guy, and he knows it's hard to be good on defense. He really wants to be good on defense.
Oh, they want to be Georgia. It's so obvious to he hired Phil Snow back. He's got Butler. He's got Addison Williams, who was a coordinator. He's got himself. He has 2 coaches for the defensive line. They want to be good on defense. The level of pressure he's going to put on everybody in that room to be not just pretty good, but elite, is high. So it'll be fun to watch that because, John Butler got his chance to call plays. He got his chance, but there's a bunch of people in the room that all have great opinions too. So no pressure.
Do you want to get a wrestling in real quick?
Do you?
Yeah, no, that's my bad.
Typically not how we do radio,
that's my bad.
Live shows, but sure, you can confer.
You said you had a wrestling question for Sam.
I said I thought you might.
Oh.
Do you want to have this conversation while we got a guy on the air?
No, that's my bad. Sam, no, I wanted to get into because you've got a unique perspective on this. Sorry, I dropped the ball there. Sam, we've been talking with some of our listeners here about the coverage of Nebraska wrestling versus their success rate. And one of my arguments was that, it's a difficult sport to be an expert in because there are some intricacies that if you don't grow up with it or you don't have a huge familiarity with it, it's hard to kind of pick up on the fly. But you have this hugely successful program at the same time that maybe doesn't get the coverage that it maybe deserves. How do you balance that as someone who has feet in those worlds of covering Nebraska and deciding who gets coverage?
Yeah, I mean, we covered each night of the event. We obviously weren't in Philadelphia, but we covered each night of the event, and we saw a readership response. We've had features all year. Gene Schinzel's done a really good job.
That's the guy. I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
it's Schinzel.
Yeah. Gene's done a great job, and so there was a feature on Antrell Taylor early in the season, and Ridge Lovett, Brock Hardy, and there's probably been a feature on just about every high-profile wrestler down there this season. I don't know if there pretty much was, and so but here just is the nature of wrestling is this. Almost all of the season, you're competing in one format, and then at Big Tens and at the NCAAs, it shifts into another. And there's almost no drama about who's going to win the national title or the Big Ten title, for that matter, because they enjoy advantages that are hard to explain on the air, and it doesn't matter. But it's notable that I think Nebraska kind of, they brought the national runner-up trophy home. And that's almost like winning the national title. That's where college wrestling is at this point. Everybody sort of acknowledges Penn State's going to do all these other things. They have 19 Olympians or something training at their center, 19 Olympic regional guys or whatever. They're literally in a different whatever. They attract, recruits that go wrestle and all this other stuff. And so Manning won Coach of the Year or whatever tournament coach. He was carried off the mat, and it's almost like there's one team that's just doing whatever they're doing over here, and then everybody else is competing for the national championship. I don't know that Nebraska went into the weekend thinking they were going to finish second. I think they probably figured they would finish anywhere from second to sixth or something, and they just had an incredible weekend. They just had one great wrestling performance after another, and that's one of the challenges though. Is the format is duels most of the season. Then you switch to a tournament format. BTN doesn't help us. I'd love to go to, they're facing a lot of their best duels are Friday night at 7 or 8. And that's not an easy time to cover, those sporting events, and they don't necessarily carry over really easily on coverage. And so but yeah, Nebraska wrestling deserves a lot of coverage, and they've done a really good job. And Manning has had an incredible career. And this was his best top to bottom team. Obviously, they peaked at the right time, and Antrell Taylor is a great story. He's a great story.
Unbelievable.
He just won the national championship, and he graduated from Millard South. And that kid's story needs to continue to be told. And that isn't always, I don't think he probably went in necessarily as the favorite, but there were a lot of upsets this year. I think there was a lot more parity in the sport than maybe there has been.
I think that's what makes the sport what it is, man. I mean, you breathe at the wrong time, and it's the wrong 4 seconds, and it's over. Like it's over.
Right. It is. Penn State dominating the sport doesn't, in my opinion, help it. There used to be a rivalry, even though Iowa dominated, there was a rivalry between Iowa and Oklahoma State that sort of sustained the sport. Penn State at this point is so far out in front that it's become like we kind of know Penn State's going to win. But so what's the real story of the NCAA Wrestling Championships other than them winning? And Nebraska was that story this year. And some years it's Iowa, some years it's an incredible wrestler. It's Gable Stevenson who lost this weekend. The sport's just not as high profile as it could be. And that's too bad. Nebraska did a really good job. And Gene did a great job of covering the team this year. There's lots of stories on Husker Extra and the World Herald that cover the team and cover the weekend. So I encourage people to read it.
Sam, appreciate the time as always and the insight there. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.